The first mistake WCW made was giving Hulk Hogan creative control. In 1994, bringing in Hulk Hogan was a major win, but they didn't just bring in Hogan the performer, they handed the steering wheel to Hogan the booker. His contract had a creative control clause, meaning he could reject storylines or match outcomes if he didn't like them. That sounds harmless, until you realize Hogan refused to lose clean to almost anyone. He could, and did, change finishes, kill pushes, and sideline angles if they didn't center on him. He kept himself strong, even when the crowd turned on him. This made long-term booking a nightmare. Every time they tried to elevate someone new, Hogan was standing in the way. The second mistake? They ran the NWO storyline into the ground. When Hall and Nash showed up in 1996 and teased an invasion, it felt real. Then Hogan turned heel and dropped the leg on Randy Savage. It was shocking. The NWO became must-watch TV. But instead of building to a climax, WCW dragged it on. For years. More and more members joined. Guys who had no business in the group, like Vincent, Buff Bagwell, even Dusty Rhodes, got NWO shirts. The group split into factions, NWO Hollywood and NWO Wolfpack. Then they merged again. It became a soap opera with no endgame. By 1999, the NWO name had no heat left. What was once revolutionary became background noise. Mistake 3. They buried the future of the business. WCW had Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Booker T, Dean Malenko. Legit in-ring talent with charisma. But because they weren't 6 feet tall and didn't have Hogan's tan or Goldberg's traps, they were treated as afterthoughts. Instead of pushing Jericho to the top, they fed him to older stars. Eddie was frustrated. Mysterio was unmasked on a random Nitro for no reason. Malenko was criminally underutilized. WCW didn't just fail to build new stars, they actively ran them off. And guess where they went? WWE. And Vince didn't waste any time building the ruthless aggression era around them. Mistake 4. They let Vince Russo write without guardrails. In theory, bringing in Vince Russo from WWF made sense. He helped write the Attitude Era, which was dominating at the time. But in practice, Russo brought all the shock with none of the structure. Title changes happened weekly. Workshoot promos blurred the lines so much that even the announcers didn't know what was real. He put himself on TV. He booked David Arquette, an actor, to win the WCW World title. He restarted the company on live TV. Stripped everyone of their belts. Had matches with multiple swerves and zero payoff. Russo was all adrenaline, no logic. Viewers stopped caring because nothing mattered. Fifth mistake. They constantly botched their biggest moments. The Sting vs. Hogan match at Starrcade '97 is the perfect example. A year and a half of build. Sting returns from the rafters, the silent vigilante. Hogan is the cowardly heel champion. The match should have been a clean win for Sting to close out the story. Instead, they overbooked it. Hogan pinned Sting clean. Then Bret Hart, just recently jumped from WWF, comes out and restarts the match, claiming a fast count that wasn't even fast. Sting wins, but the crowd was confused. It didn't feel like a triumphant win. It felt like a mess. The momentum died on the spot, and WCW never recovered. Mistake 6. They gave away PPV matches for free, constantly. Why build to a climax when you can just give away the biggest match on Nitro, right? Goldberg vs. Hogan, title versus undefeated streak, was given away on free TV in the Georgia Dome. It pulled huge ratings, but sacrificed long-term revenue. Imagine if they built that up and sold it on PPV. That one decision alone probably cost them millions. And it wasn't a one-time thing. They gave away title matches, grudge matches, dream matches, just to pop a rating that week. They taught their audience that you never had to pay for anything, because it was all going to be free eventually. Seventh mistake, the contracts were financial insanity. Guaranteed money, full creative control, limited dates. WCW wrote contracts that gave the wrestlers more power than the company. Guys like Hogan, Nash, Goldberg, and Bret Hart had deals that paid them 7 figures no matter what. Some even had clauses where they'd get paid more if someone else signed a higher deal. It was a broken system. Plus, there was no accountability. If someone didn't want to show up or didn't want to lose, they didn't have to. WCW was paying millions to guys who were working part-time, calling their own shots and killing storylines in the process. That's not a wrestling promotion. That's a retirement home. Mistake 8. They expanded faster than they could handle. Nitro was successful, so they added Thunder. More programming, more touring, more production costs. But they didn't have the infrastructure. WWF had a developmental system. WCW didn't. WCW didn't even have a consistent writing team. Thunder quickly became the B-show, filled with filler matches and half-baked storylines. House shows were poorly attended. Production costs ballooned. They grew too fast, with no plan to support it. And as soon as the ratings slipped, the overhead crushed them. Mistake 9. Backstage politics dictated everything. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hogan, all had leverage in their deals, allowing them creative input. There was no real power structure. Nash was literally booking the show while still wrestling. He ended Goldberg's streak, with help from a cattle prod. Then Hogan laid down for him in the Fingerpoke of Doom. It was a joke. Wrestlers were writing their own storylines, changing finishes, and playing favorites. If you weren't part of the in crowd, you had no shot at a push, and the locker room knew it. Morale dropped. The product got worse. The fans tuned out. Mistake 10. They ignored the fans. Judy Bagwell on a forklift. The demon character pushed to satisfy a KISS contract. Random heel and face turns with no explanation. Storylines that would start and disappear the next week. Matches ending with run-ins, then swerves, then more run-ins. Fans who watched week to week couldn't follow anything. There was no consistency, no payoff, just noise. WCW forgot the golden rule. Wrestling is about storytelling. And once the fans lost faith in the story, they stopped showing up. Mistake 11. They relied on nostalgia. While WWF was creating The Rock, Triple H, Edge, the Hardy Boys, and Kurt Angle, WCW brought in Roddy Piper, Sid Vicious, the Ultimate Warrior for a 1-month disaster. They kept going back to the 80s. Their biggest new star was Goldberg, and they burned through him in under a year. Everyone else was a retread. You can't build momentum if you're always looking backward. Mistake 12. They had no real identity. One week it was about cruiserweights, the next hardcore matches, then celebrity involvement, then edgy NWO storylines, then comedy. It was all over the place. A fan turning on Nitro had no idea what they were going to get. WWF, for all its chaos, had a unified tone. WCW felt like a rotating roulette wheel of gimmicks. And when you're not consistent, you lose trust. Trust from your audience is everything. Once it's gone, you're done. Mistake 13. They stopped innovating. WCW changed wrestling forever with Nitro, the Cruiserweights, and the NWO. But by 1999, they were following WWF's lead. Copying ideas, chasing shock value, trying to out-crash TV with more blood, more chaos, more swerves. But it was always one step behind. The same company that once revolutionized wrestling was now a follower. And in wrestling, if you're not leading, you're losing. By the time Turner executives pulled the plug, WCW was bleeding money. Ratings had tanked, talent had jumped ship, and what was once a legitimate rival to the WWF was sold for just $2.5 million. Not per show, not per year, total. Thanks for watching. These videos will be posted a lot, so make sure you subscribe if you want more.